So I wanted to talk about um, a subject today that, again, controversial subject. I don't know if it's controversial, just highly debatable. Um, some people really like this procedure, think it's a good procedure to offer and do, and are doing this procedure. And then there are those that do not like this procedure, do not think it should be done or offered. And some of them are very vocal about it. I'm on Facebook, so I get a lot of my topics for the podcast, a lot of things that I like to talk about on Facebook. I'll see like posts and conversations pop up on Facebook. And on Facebook, um, I think people, I don't know, they just seem to be a lot more open and expressive than on Instagram. It's like Facebook is where they really pour their heart out and really express themselves. And sometimes it's professionally with kindness and respect and grace, and sometimes it is not. It is with like anger and, you know, and just, I don't know, just a tone. So I'm talking about freckles. Um, and the other reason I wanted to talk about this is my artist Amy here is removing a set of freckles. And they're on a young man. Typically, we see freckles done on women, but this happens to be a young man. And they were poorly done and devastating, looked horrible, looked really, really bad. So Amy did one lift session. She's using lift, and she did one session, and it desaturated the freckles by about 50%. And he was ecstatic. So I just saw him again before convention, and she was doing his second lift session. But I walked in and he immediately like grabbed my hand and was like, "Did you wanted me to see?" And he was like really, really excited. So, and he said for the first time, he felt really hopeful, like he doesn't have to live the rest of his life with this. And he has beautiful arm tattoos. I mean, just some Japanese tattooing, beautiful tattoos everywhere else, but the freckles were done poorly. So I'm wondering, the people, and I'm not going to say whether I for freckles or not freckles. I just wanted to talk about freckles. And what I'm wondering is if those that are have such a hard stance and don't like freckles, think they should not be done, shouldn't be offered, don't do it, no way, not changing my mind. There's some people that have a really hard stance on freckles. And I'm wondering if they have such a hard stance against freckles is because what they have seen with freckles have all been what we're removing. Poorly done, poorly thought out, irresponsible, botched freckles, bad freckles. I'm wondering if that's how they formed their opinion. And if that's how they formed their opinion, those that are against freckles, then that is, 100% understandable. Correct? I mean, if that's all that I saw was poorly done freckles, or freckles that may have been done well and looked good at one point, but now they're blue or black and they've grown in size and they look terrible, that would be my opinion, I'm quite sure. I would probably have a hard stance against it. I'm wondering if those that have such a hard stance against freckles, I'm wondering if they've seen really well done freckles, but haven't seen them all the way through the aging process and maybe what they look like at the end of the aging process when they need to be refreshed, maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And I'm wondering if they had the opportunity to experience well-done freckles that went through a very stable aging process to the point where they faded out and the client chose to have them redone, refreshed, like clients do with their brows and eyeliner, if they would feel differently. Right? I'm wondering. I'm sure there's some people listening right now that don't like freckles, don't think it should be offered. So I'm wondering if that is you, if you saw a well done set of freckles and then you saw them 3 or 4 years later and they had, faded out of the skin, lovely, would you feel differently? Would you feel differently? So that's just something for you to think about. So let's talk about bad freckles. You have freckles, Willow.
I do. I'm covered in freckles.
Put your mic down there.
I am covered in freckles, yes.
You are covered in freckles. So you said something interesting to the beginning of the podcast before we were recording, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I used to get bullied relentlessly when I was especially in elementary school. I just heard all of it about my freckles, just that I looked like someone had dotted them on me. And so for me, it's kind of weird to see an entire service be created out of something that I got ruthlessly bullied for my childhood.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that people are now in the idea, in the mindset that freckles are awesome and that they do look beautiful. But it's very interesting to see that shift from almost a hate towards freckles to now people are buying them.
People are actually spending their money and buying them.
And spending good money to get them done.
Spending good money, yeah. If you want a good artist that does them well, you're going to probably spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with redheads. I think, I was watching a documentary about left-hand versus right-handers and how if you were left-handed, this is years ago, maybe 100 years, if not, long time ago in history, if you were left-handed, society considered you not as intelligent.
Really?
Yeah, it was a very interesting documentary. Very interesting documentary. And of course, now, there was a lot of things back then that they thought. They thought if you were gay, it was a psychological, you had mental issues, it was a psychological issue. There was a lot of things. But I thought that was interesting about, left hand versus right hand. Of course, now we don't feel that way. I mean, and redheads, there used to be a little bit more. I was just listening to an interview with Ed Sheeran, and he hated his red hair, when he was young because he got bullied. Why do kids pick on kids? Kids are mean, man. And I wonder why they pick on kids with red hair. What is it about red hair or freckles that makes a kid want to pick on you?
The difference. Freckles, they're not really uncommon, but they're not as common as non-freckled people.
Yeah, and redheaded
is definitely less common than brunette, blonde, black hair. So
yes.
I think it's more just the other. If you're other than me and you're different, I'm going to point that out and I'm going
to make you pay for it, make you suffer for it. It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Instead of celebrating difference and being fascinated and curious, right? Kids tend to want to punish and bully and make fun of. And then hopefully they grow up to adults that, look back and think, man, I was a real dick. I was a real dick. But I'm just wondering why kids, I don't know. It still doesn't make sense. I understand what you're saying and I agree with you, but I still just, I don't know. I just can't understand it. I never really picked on anybody or bullied anybody. I was bullied as well in high school. But so now Ed Sheeran loves his red hair and actually celebrates it. He was being interviewed with, I think it was Gayle King, and he's like, yeah, it's like people love because he's got this whole thing. It's kind of messy and he gels it a certain way, and he's like, yeah, my hair turned into this whole thing. People love my hair now. And she said, do you love your hair now? And he goes, I do. I actually do. Which is great.
Yeah,
which
that's
is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.